Joining me now is a member of the Republican leadership, Senator Roy Blunt. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. You've been in Congress a long time.
I have.
You have relationships across the aisle. So what is your sense? Are you going to come up with a deal so that this trial is going to start early January?
Yeah, I think a deal is easy to come up with, and we've even got the plan in place from what happened in the Clinton impeachment, and I think that's ultimately where we wind up, where we start down this path, let both sides make their case, let the House impeachment managers make their case, let the president, for what I would argue is the first time, have a chance to make his case publicly, for his defenders to do that, and then see where we are. That's what happened with Clinton. I think that's the best way to approach this, and my guess is that's what we do. Otherwise, we just sort of start down a path where 51 senators decide every issue as it comes up. I don't know that anybody wants to either have that happen or take the time that would take on either side for us to get this out before the American people, both sides having a chance to present their case.
As you well know, the standoff right now is that the Speaker is holding the articles of impeachment at the House until the parameters of the trial are done. The Wall Street Journal editorial board said that the Senate should and even could hold a trial even if they don't get the articles. You're the chair of the Rules Committee. Is that possible? Have you even looked into that?
You know, I don't know that that's possible. I think it's very unlikely. I frankly don't think the Speaker has the right to do this or the power to do this. The Speaker has a lot of power. But once the House has spoken, the Speaker doesn't get the decision as to whether or not she transmits that decision to the Senate, in my view. I think we'll have this all handled by the time we get back in January. I'm sure everybody is beginning to figure out how to present their case. Frankly, I think it's a mistake on the Speaker's part. I think this has looked pretty political anyway, and this is sort of the icing on the political cake, where at the end, the Speaker still can't let go of this as an issue to try to wring the last vestige of politics out of. I mean, the outcome here is virtually certain. As I've been saying for weeks, a partisan vote in the House would almost certainly result in a partisan vote in the Senate. So the outcome's certain. Trying to get that last thing out of it rather than move on, as the Speaker appeared to want to do one day last week, and then suddenly she decides to involve herself in what the Senate should do.
So you say that the outcome is almost certain. I want you to listen to what a couple of your Republican colleagues have said.
I'm not an impartial juror. This is a political process. There's not anything judicial about it. Impeachment is a political decision.
I am trying to give a pretty clear signal. I have made up my mind.
Have you made up your mind?
Well, based on what I know right now, I just don't think they made the case. I don't think they came close to making the case. And, you know, this is called a trial because there was really in the Constitution, I think, no better thing to call it. But it's a very political process. 5 of the so-called jurors running for president, not a single Republican in the House convinced that they should vote for either the articles of impeachment, and a couple of Democrats convinced that they shouldn't vote for the articles of impeachment. So it's not a classic. I was talking to a federal judge one day this week, and he said, how could you call this really a trial? So he was a federal judge for a decade or more, where half of the jurors can overrule what the judge decides that ought to happen next. It's not a trial in any classic sense. It is a political decision to do it. And at the end of the day, every single member of the Senate has considerations that are pretty obvious.
Okay, so you don't think that the House made its case, but let's just talk about one of the basic things, which is the president asking a foreign country, the leader of a foreign country, to investigate a man who is a political rival of his. Is that appropriate?
Well, at the same time, you had the Attorney General asking leaders of other countries to help them look into the 2016 elections, whether it's
which is to benefit the United States. This is a specific ask, specifically about his political opponent. So, do you feel that that's appropriate?
Well, the president and the Secretary of State and the retired Lieutenant General, who's a foreign policy advisor, all feel like that call was within
What
the
do you
bounds
think? What does Roy Blunt
normal.
think?
You know, I think I've never been very happy with any of the Ukraine decisions since the Russians invaded Crimea. We told President Obama in December of 2015 to provide lethal aid, which he never did. I've never been happy with the way any of this has been handled regarding Ukraine, and we're trying to do what we can now to be helpful.
So your colleagues, Ben Sass, called it very troubling, the call asking for to help dig up dirt on Joe Biden. Lamar Alexander said it was inappropriate. Marco Rubio said he shouldn't have done it, and the list goes on.
Any other president would have said, I'll have the Attorney General call you about what some things we're looking into. This one didn't.
So did he make a mistake?
But presidents make mistakes. I don't know if this call was a mistake, but again, I think there are plenty of mistakes that have been made by both President Obama and President Trump regarding Ukraine and how to deal with the Russian aggression in Ukraine, just like how to deal with the Russian aggression in our elections.
So let's talk about potential witnesses in the Senate trial. Some key figures, like the former National Security Advisor John Bolton, haven't testified. Bolton's lawyer said that Bolton was involved in, quote, many relevant meetings and conversations that have not yet been discussed in the testimonies thus far. As a juror, don't you want to hear from him?
You know, as a senator and as a person who believes the Constitution is there for a purpose, I think it's the job of the House to make the case. Only a majority of the House can send a case over to the Senate. For 180 years, we only one time touched the idea of presidential impeachment. Here now 3 times in 46 years, the Congress has moved through the process of impeaching a president. I don't think you want to make that so easy that the House, that is of a different party, can send over the vaguest set of charges and expect the Senate then to do the House's job. I think they should have gone to court, just like the House did with Clinton, just like the House did with Nixon. It would have taken some time, but they had plenty of time. They've been wanting to impeach the president, many of them.
So it was the House's job, and you will not vote to hear from any witnesses.
Well, let's let them present their case and then see if we need to hear from witnesses. That's the way it was done in 1999. I think that's the way we should do it this time.
Senator, I want to ask you about a really interesting article this week from the editor of Christianity Today, which is a prominent evangelical magazine. He called for the president's removal from office, and here's what he wrote. None of the president's positives can balance the moral and political danger we face under a leader of such grossly immoral character. Going on to say that he should be removed, we believe, is not a matter of partisan loyalties, but loyalty to the creator of the Ten Commandments. So he's saying that he can't reconcile his Christian faith and values, kindness, generosity, integrity, with the president's, quote, immoral actions in business, relationships with women, and habitual string of mischaracterizations, lies, and slanders. I know your Christian faith is important to you. And I'm wondering, especially since I think it's almost 6 in 10 of your constituents are white Christians, when you read this, is this something that is familiar? Do you wrestle with this?
Well, I think that person looking at the president versus what the president's done as president it's got to be an outlier in everything I hear from the Christian community. The faith-based community generally is very supportive of this president because he's been very supportive of them. What the president's done to allow faith-based institutions to get back as one of the potential options in adoption, something I care a lot about. What the president's done to try to assert religious freedom all over the world.
Again, what about you,
really
Roy
important.
Blunt? And do you struggle personally with the kinds of things
if you
that he
look
described?
at the president's actions, if Roy Blunt looks at the president's actions, no president in my lifetime has been as aggressive in trying to achieve the goals that faith-based voters have set out than this one has.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming in this morning.
Great to be with you.
Thanks. Thank you.